"I need the money by tomorrow morning," my daughter Tiffany demanded, handing me what looked like legal documents for her husband Brad's $400,000 debt. "And don't forget, cash only," Brad added with that arrogant smirk I had come to detest. I simply nodded. Of course. 6 hours later, I was at the international airport. When they arrived to pick up their money, they found only a locked door and a small package waiting. When they opened it, the truth hit them like lightning. Betrayal, consequence, justice. The story begins now. Please subscribe to William's Revenge Stories and write in the comments what time it is where you are watching this right now. The doorbell rang 3 times in a row, each ring more impatient than the last. I put down my vintage bourbon and the quarterly financial statements, already knowing who was pulling into my circular driveway. Through the study window, I could see their black SUV gleaming under the security lights. Tiffany only knocked like that when she wanted money. I walked through my limestone foyer, passing family photos that suddenly felt like relics from another life. Tiffany at 6, missing her front teeth at the Christmas pageant. Tiffany at 18, high school graduation in her blue dress. Tiffany at 27, her wedding day at the big downtown cathedral. Every image now seemed to mock my own blindness. There she was with that calculated smile, the one that hadn't reached her eyes in years. Brad loomed behind her, checking something on his phone with the intensity of a man watching horse race results or football bets. Neither looked particularly happy to be visiting the estate. Tiffany hugged me, lingering a moment too long. The hug felt rehearsed, as if she were making an emotional deposit for a later withdrawal. Brad walked right past me without even a greeting, his expensive cowboy boots clicking against the stone floor as he headed straight for my leather armchair. My armchair. I followed him into the living room, noticing how Tiffany nervously adjusted her designer bag, the $4,000 one I had bought her last Christmas. Brad had already spread documents over my hardwood coffee table as if he were leading a board meeting. Tiffany sat on the edge of the sofa, her fingers finding the pearl necklace I had given her for her 30th birthday. She always touched it when she was about to ask for something. "Can I get you two anything? Water, scotch, iced tea?" I suggested, though hospitality was the furthest thing from my mind. "Let's cut to the chase, William," Brad said without looking up from his papers. "We have a situation, not even the courtesy of Mr. Miller." I gripped my glass of bourbon tighter and counted backward from 10. An anger management technique that wasn't working much anymore. Tiffany's voice went high-pitched. "Another sign. Dad, you know we wouldn't come to you unless it was absolutely necessary. You always said family comes first and we are family. What happened to the investment property?" I kept my tone neutral, though my jaw had started its familiar clenching. Brad finally looked up. His expression suggested I had asked about the Great Depression, market corrections, a temporary setback. "But we aren't here for that." Tiffany's wedding ring, her grandmother's ring, spun nervously on her finger. It was her tell when she was lying. It had been since she was 12 and denied breaking my late wife's porcelain angel figurine. "The thing is," Tiffany started, then stopped and started again. "Brad has been working on this new project, an agricultural tech startup. Very promising. Revolutionary, really." "How much?" I interrupted. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked for 3 long seconds of silence. Brad's cologne. Something expensive and overpowering, mixed with the oak and smoke notes of my bourbon. Tiffany's heel tapped a nervous rhythm on the stone floor. "It really isn't that much for someone with your assets," Brad said, leaning back in my armchair. The leather creaked under his weight, a sound that had always been mine alone until tonight. $400,000. "We need it in our account by tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. The room seemed to tilt slightly. The migraine that always started behind my left eye in moments of stress began its familiar pulse. "Almost $500,000, said as casually as ordering a pizza. "That's it." I started and stopped. Memories arrived uninvited. Teaching Tiffany to ride a bike in the town square. Her college graduation from State University. Walking her down the aisle at that luxury hotel. Had that little girl ever existed? Or had I imagined her? "Dad, we wouldn't ask if we had another choice." Tiffany's fingers moved from her necklace to wipe her eyes, though I noticed there were no actual tears. The mortgage, the kids' schools. Do you know how expensive everything has gotten with inflation? Yes, I knew I paid those tuition fees directly, $15,000 per kid per semester at that private academy. The mortgage on their house in the gated community, the one where I had covered the down payment of $200,000, had been a one-time help 3 years ago. Brad stood up, walked to my bar without invitation, and poured himself 3 fingers of my 30-year-old scotch. We aren't dealing with bank people, William. These are serious people from Vegas. I would hate for this to affect your reputation at the country club or your Ford dealerships. The threat floated in the air like Brad's cologne. Thick, overwhelming, and nauseating. My blood pressure spiked. The migraine exploded from behind my eye through my skull. The room spun slightly, and I grabbed the fireplace mantle to keep myself upright. "Dad, you look pale," Tiffany said, not with concern, but with calculation, as if she were measuring my weakness for maximum advantage. Then she said the words that changed everything. "If Mom were alive, she would be ashamed of how you were treating us." The words hung between us like a knife. Tiffany knew exactly what she was doing. Linda and I had divorced 8 years ago, but Tiffany still used her memory as a weapon when it suited her. It didn't matter that Linda was living happily in Florida with her new husband, a retired doctor. It didn't matter that she had warned me about Tiffany's manipulation during our Sunday calls. In Tiffany's version of history, Linda was a saint who would have opened her checkbook without asking questions. "Your mother," I said slowly, "would have told you to get jobs." Brad let out a short laugh from my bar, still holding my scotch as if he had earned it. "Jobs? I am an entrepreneur, William. I generate jobs. 3 failed companies in 4 years. A cryptocurrency disaster I had warned him about last Christmas. The consulting firm that never consulted anyone. The organic produce distributor that only lasted 6 months. I had funded them all. Every single one, watching money disappear into Brad's delusions of grandeur. You missed little recital last month." Tiffany changed tactics, her voice shaking with manufactured pain. "And Marion's dance festival, but you have time for your quarterly reports." Those quarterly reports kept her children in private school, kept her SUV fueled, kept her address in the gated community respectable. But I didn't say that. Instead, I watched Tiffany's mascara run in 2 perfect streams. She had clearly practiced this performance. Let me understand this. I let go of the fireplace mantle, straightening up despite the migraine. "You need $400,000 by tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. For what exactly?" Tiffany and Brad exchanged a look. The kind married couple's perfect after years of coordinated deceit. Brad put down my scotch and returned to the coffee table, shuffling papers with the unconscious rhythm of someone used to handling cards or chips. "Real estate opportunity," he said. "It is time-sensitive. We cannot miss this window. You just said you lost money on real estate. That was different." Brad's knuckles turned white as he gripped one of the documents. "This is crypto. This is a sure thing." The slip was small but significant. Crypto, not real estate. The same mistake that cost them $200,000 8 months ago. My left hand started to shake. A new symptom in my 65th year. I shoved it in my pocket. Tiffany's phone buzzed. She looked at it, typed quickly, then put it face down. "Dad, we have supported you through so much. When you and Mom divorced, who stood by your side? When the economy crashed in 2020, who helped keep the dealerships running? You were in Cancun that entire summer?" I reminded her, bragging about it daily on Instagram. "That isn't fair." I started listing, my voice steady despite the rising anger. The wedding, $600,000. The house down payment, $200,000. Brad's first company, $150,000. The second one, $100,000. The third, that is ancient history. Brad interrupted, standing up, trying to use his height as an advantage. "We are talking about our future. The future of your grandchildren. The grandchildren whose tuition I paid directly to the school." Tiffany stood up too, grabbing her phone. The rehearsed childhood photo, the one of us at Six Flags when she was 7, suddenly appeared on the coffee table. She had brought it as a prop. "These are not just debts, William. Brad stepped closer. Close enough for me to see the small scar above his left eyebrow. They are obligations to serious people with serious consequences. By tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. or things get complicated for everyone, your reputation, the dealerships, that nice country club membership. You are threatening me in my own house. My voice dropped to barely a whisper. We are being honest about reality, Tiffany said. But her voice faltered. She had never seen me this angry, this controlled. Dad, please. We need this. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. That is non-negotiable. The room felt stifling despite the central air conditioning. My migraine throbbed with every heartbeat. Brad's cologne seemed to thicken the air. Tiffany's calculated tears had smeared her makeup into something almost theatrical. I looked at both of them. My daughter, who had become a stranger, and her husband, who had never pretended to be anything other than a parasite. The grandfather clock chimed 9 times. Outside, the gated community continued its quiet nightly routines, oblivious to the family destruction happening in my living room. Fine. The word came out flat, exhausted. Tomorrow. Now get out. Tiffany mistook my exhaustion for surrender. She lunged forward, arms outstretched for another hug. I took a step back, letting her arms fall empty. Brad extended his hand to shake, squeezing too hard, establishing a dominance he had never earned. We knew you would understand, Tiffany said, gathering her designer bag and her rehearsed photo. Family first, right, Dad? They left without another word. Brad's hand possessively on Tiffany's lower back, guiding her like a casino chip he had just won. I stood in the entryway, watching the distinct engine noise of their SUV fade down the street. The tail lights disappeared as they turned onto the main avenue of the neighborhood. I waited exactly 5 minutes after their tail lights faded before making the first call. Charles Hernandez answered on the second ring. Despite the late hour, 25 years of friendship and legal counsel meant he knew my patterns. I never called after 9 unless something was seriously wrong. They finally crossed the line, didn't they? His voice showed no surprise, only resignation. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m., I said, as if I were an ATM with a withdrawal limit. They finally exceeded. The house transfer papers are already filed, Charles, I said. I heard the rustle of papers on his end. Only they don't know it yet. Remember, you insisted on keeping it in your name when you paid the down payment. What about Linda? She is waiting for your call. She says, it was about time you stopped enabling them. I hung up and immediately went to my home office. The migraine had transformed from explosive pain to cold clarity. My laptop opened to a confirmation email from 3 weeks ago. The Bahamas, April 5th to May 15th. Your reservation is confirmed. The retirement planning trip would now serve a different purpose. I called the airline, navigating the automated system with practical efficiency. The morning flight could be moved to 6:15 a.m. First class still available, 1 passenger. My safe opened with a combination I had never shared, not even with Tiffany. Inside, organized in labeled folders, lay 15 years of financial documentation. Each check, each bank transfer, each loan, the agreement Brad signed in December 2023, promising this would be the last request. Social media posts from Tiffany from the last year, printed and dated, showing her lavish lifestyle while pleading poverty. Shopping sprees at luxury malls, dinners at expensive restaurants, weekend trips to resorts. I found an old shipping box in the garage, ordinary and unimportant. Inside, I arranged 3 sets of documents with the precision of a lawyer. First, the deed to her house. Second, the complete history of loans. Nearly $1 million in 7 years, meticulously documented. Third, the legal notices Charles had prepared months ago, hoping we would never need them. At the bottom, I placed a USB drive containing the security footage from tonight. The cameras I had installed after a burglary 2 years ago had captured everything. Tiffany's rehearsed tears, Brad's threats, their coordinated manipulation. On top, I put a single note. You wanted this by tomorrow. Here is what you are actually going to get. Packing took me 30 minutes. 2 suitcases efficiently filled with tropical weather clothes, essential documents, medications. My dealership manager, Alex, Received a brief email. Family emergency. You are in charge. Details to follow. I stood in the hallway looking at the family portrait we had taken 4 years ago at the park by the lake. Tiffany's smile seemed genuine then. Or maybe I just wanted to believe it was. I took the heavy frame off the wall, turned it around, and hung it back up. The blank canvas seemed more honest somehow. In my room, I took off my college class ring. The one Tiffany used to play with as a child, pretending she would wear it one day. It went into the box with everything else. The migraine had disappeared completely, replaced by something closer to anticipation. My phone showed 3 texts from Tiffany. I deleted them without reading. Brad had called twice, probably to reinforce the deadline for tomorrow. The voicemails could wait forever. I made one more call, this time to Linda in Florida. She answered immediately as if she had been waiting by the phone. William Charles called me. Are you really going to do it? I should have done this years ago. She is our daughter. Linda's voice carried sadness, not judgment. But she is not the daughter we raised, is she? No, she isn't. We were silent for a moment. The place in the Bahamas. Will you be safe there? It is a vacation. A long one. Alex can handle the dealerships. The lawyers can handle everything else. You know she will try to find you. Let her try. By the time she discovers what is really in that box, I will be drinking coffee on the beach, deciding if I will ever come back. We said goodbye without sentimentality. Linda understood what Tiffany had become, perhaps before I did. Mothers always know. At 11:30 p.m., I was in my dark kitchen drinking water and studying the refrigerator covered with my grandchildren's drawings. Stick figures labeled Grandpa and me fishing. A crayon drawing of my dealership with Grandpa's job scribbled below. I carefully took down the fishing drawing, folded it, and put it in my wallet. The children were not responsible for their parents' decisions. I put the box on the porch table where they would be sure to see it. The doorbell camera would capture their reaction when they opened it at 11:30 a.m., expecting a check and finding instead the complete dismantling of their illusions. The alarm was set for 4:30 a.m. 6 hours until my new life began. 6.5 hours until theirs fell apart. The alarm cut through the darkness exactly at 4:30 a.m. No snooze button, no hesitation. I had trained myself during 30 years of morning dealership meetings to wake up instantly. Today, that discipline served a different purpose. The coffee maker clicked on already programmed the night before. A dark roast, the kind Tiffany always complained was too strong when she still visited for breakfast. The ceramic mug warmed my hands. An anniversary gift from her 10 years ago when she still remembered those dates. Through the kitchen window, the city skyline was starting its slow awakening. Office buildings lighting up floor by floor while most of the city still slept. I moved through my house with deliberate precision, documenting every room like a detective at a crime scene. The master bedroom still had the portrait of Linda's father. Tiffany had always wanted it. She simply never asked nicely enough to receive it. Her childhood room, converted into an office long ago, still displayed her high school trophies. National debate champion, academic excellence. The daughter I had raised versus the stranger who demanded money 12 hours ago. The pool area looked serene in the dawn light. I had taught Tiffany to swim there, her fearless 4-year-old splash. Last July, Brad had gotten drunk at our 4th of July celebration. He fell in fully clothed and then blamed me for the pool's location. Even then, I had given him the check for his ruined designer watch. The car purred to life in the garage. I chose the sedan over the sports car. Brad had too many memories in that car. Too many assumptions about inheritance. The streets of the exclusive subdivision were empty except for the garbage trucks starting their Saturday routes. I drove past Tiffany's subdivision. All the houses dark, peaceful. They were sleeping, probably dreaming of ways to spend my money. The radio played classic rock. A familiar band filled the cabin. At the intersection of the main avenues, I considered calling Linda, but decided against it. Charles would handle that conversation better than I could. The highway stretched ahead, almost empty. I passed 3 of my dealerships. Their lots full of inventory that would soon be Alex's responsibility. The main location still had my photo in the lobby. That would have to change. Near downtown, I noticed Brad's favorite casino, where his gambling connections congregated, where this whole mess had really started. Construction on the main avenue forced a detour onto another street. The city where I had built my business for 3 decades looked different in the dawn darkness. Like a set prepared for a play I would no longer be acting in. Charles's office occupied the 38th floor of the city tower. At 5:30 a.m., the building was mostly empty, except for security and the obsessively ambitious. Charles was waiting in the conference room with Martina, his paralegal, documents spread on the table with military precision, a box of donuts in the center. Our tradition for important deals since 2001. You look surprisingly well-rested, Charles observed, sliding the power of attorney across the table. The first good night of sleep in months. I signed with my father's fountain pen. The one Tiffany didn't know existed. Limited scope, I see. Expires in 60 days. Property transfers and financial restructuring only. Can't have you selling my organs after all. My attempt at levity fell flat. We both knew this was necessary surgery, not revenge. Martina presented the property documentation with clinical efficiency. The interesting part, William, is the timing. The transfer was executed yesterday at 4:00 p.m. That was 3 hours before they arrived at your house. 3 hours before. Tiffany's house has been legally yours since she signed those papers in 2021. She never read the second page. The irony was perfect. While Tiffany drove to my house to demand money, she had already lost her big thanks for watching and subscribe.